Hey, millionaire. We all love playing the lottery because it's the easiest way to get rich, if you're lucky enough to win. But it's definitely not the only way. You can create a global brand, invest in real estate, or become an international criminal mastermind. Paul LaRue chose the last option on that list. He's probably the greatest crime lord you've never heard of. His shady activities were so widespread that during his trial, the judge compared him to a James Bond villain. His criminal empire spanned half the world and included all the things you'd expect from the greatest crime movie ever: drugs, military takeovers, and, of course, murder. Lots and lots of murder. But who is LaRue, and how did he grow into one of the biggest crime bosses in the world? Let's find out. LaRue was born in Zimbabwe, way back when the country was still called Rhodesia. At the time, South Africa was going through a time of widespread political changes that weren't exactly calm. Rhodesia was in the middle of a civil war during LaRue's early childhood. His adoptive parents kept him pretty sheltered from it all, but there was no shortage of criminal activity in his environment at the time. The chaos meant that loads of people were smuggling or doing business in a legal gray area. Some of those people were doing it because they could get away with it, and others were getting involved because they had no other option. But this sort of illegal business wasn't viewed as something really bad. Some people believe this might be why LaRue never felt guilty about his criminal activity later in life. He didn't stay in Rhodesia for too long. In the 80s, when LaRue was a teenager, his parents moved to South Africa, and LaRue hated it. He hated the country and his peers. Apparently, he was bullied about his weight a lot as a teen. This meant that LaRue became more and more introverted. He would sit at his computer all the time, learning programming to avoid talking to anyone. Eventually, he dropped out of school completely to focus on programming full-time. It wasn't a bad decision for him either. He was really good at it. In the 1990s, he was hopping around London, Hong Kong, and Amsterdam, making a name for himself as the creator of the open-source encryption software E4M. The code he created was incredibly successful. It became the basis of TrueCrypt, one of the most secure encryption programs of its time. It would probably still be used if the creator hadn't abandoned it in 2014. It was so successful that Edward Snowden claims the authorities still have problems trying to crack it, which is probably why ISIS loves it so much. But even though the software LaRue created saw so much success, he didn't benefit from it. A dispute from his boss meant that he never made a dollar from his creation. That's probably what led him underground in 2004. From his new location in the Philippines, LaRue began creating his secret criminal empire online. And it started the way all great criminal empires do, with drugs. In LaRue's case, the drugs were prescription painkillers, which he was selling illegally to the US public via an online pharmacy called RX Limited. The company was brilliantly used by American doctors and pharmacists to write, fill, and ship the drugs around the country, using the opioid crisis to LaRue's advantage. And it worked. The company was soon making hundreds of millions of dollars. By the late 2000s, LaRue had used all that money to grow his shady business into something much bigger. By this time, the power had gone straight to LaRue's head. He was now certain he could get away with anything. He began to increase his range of criminal activities, which he was operating from his penthouse in the Philippines. Soon, he was smuggling methamphetamines out of North Korea to sell around the world. He was shipping literally tons of cocaine into Australia. He was laundering his millions in gold, which he was sourcing from multiple African countries. And if that wasn't enough, he was also setting up arms deals in Indonesia. Even worse than all that, he was also attempting to sell weapons technology for a missile guidance system to Iran through a middleman. And even though RX Limited was still earning LaRue hundreds of millions every year, he was determined to cement himself in the drug, arms, and illegal fishing business in Africa. He decided that the best way to do that was to set up his own village in Somalia. Where would you set up a village if you were a criminal mastermind? Tell us in the comments, and keep watching. We're only just getting started. Of course, as the business grew, LaRue's operations became more and more violent. For the village in Somalia, he installed a small army of 200 trained and armed soldiers to protect his operation. The village was eventually abandoned, but the violence wasn't. LaRue had hired a collection of mercenaries through a company called Echelon Associates. The company was led by a man called David Smith, who recruited ex-soldiers to help safeguard LaRue's criminal activity and execute anyone who crossed LaRue. Smith must have felt he'd made it big working for a crime boss as successful as LaRue. He definitely could have gotten rich off his involvement in such a big operation. He was probably living it up until LaRue decided that Smith was stealing from him. We'll never know whether Smith really did cross LaRoe, but it doesn't really matter. LaRoe had Smith executed for it anyway. Now, everyone knew that even LaRue's top guys weren't safe. He replaced Smith with a man appropriately named Joseph Hunter, an ex-U.S. Army sniper who went by the name Rambo. Rambo was now his top lieutenant. Rambo would handle all executions from that moment on, and he sure had enough work to do. Even LaRue's own family members weren't safe. His own cousin, Matthew Smith, was working as an employee for him at RX Limited when they got into a fight about money. Instead of getting his hands dirty, LaRue simply ordered Smith's house in Zimbabwe to be firebombed. Somehow, Smith escaped without any serious injuries. To date, there are 7 known murders that were ordered by LaRue, but the one that drew the most attention was the killing of Catherine Lee. Catherine was an estate agent in the Philippines, who unfortunately got on LaRue's bad side. LaRue had decided that Catherine had cheated him on a land deal, and he put her name on a kill list. Rambo and 2 other ex-US soldiers were called on to carry out the job, which was referred to as ninja work. Rambo recruited the other 2 soldiers, saying that LaRue would pay them $35,000 each to fly from their homes in North Carolina to the Philippines to carry out Catherine's execution. Rambo also provided firearms and silencers to help them carry out the job. The 2 men first conducted surveillance on Catherine to devise a plan before contacting her, pretending to be potential clients. When she showed up for a meeting, they kidnapped her and bundled her into the back of a van. While one of the men was driving, the other shot Catherine twice in the face. Her body was found on a pile of garbage on the side of the road. Clearly, LaRue had no moral objection to this type of behavior, and he'd do anything to make sure nobody dared to cross him. Rumors are still circulating about the extent of his criminal activity. Statements from old employees and ex-business partners indicate LaRue had plans to smuggle gold belonging to violent revolutionary leader Gaddafi. Others tell of a planned military coup he wanted to stage in the Seychelles using a troop of international mercenaries. Others claim that he is the real Satoshi Nakamoto, the fake name of the unknown mastermind behind Bitcoin. Whether these stories are true or not doesn't really matter. They easily could have been planned by a man with the kind of unrelenting criminal energy that LaRue seemed to have. Either way, by 2012, he was possibly the single most active online criminal in the world, with a network covering literally half the globe. Don't forget to subscribe for more great stories like this one, and keep watching to find out what happened to LaRue. By that same year, he was still looking to expand his operations. One afternoon, he found himself in a hotel room in Liberia. This was an important meeting, even for LaRue. He was there to discuss the final details of a new partnership with a Colombian drug lord named Pepe. Pepe had approached LaRue about wanting to set up new crystal meth sales opportunities in North America and Europe. LaRue said he would help by supplying raw materials and connections to set up new labs in West Africa to supply the crystal meth that Pepe needed. LaRue was more than happy to discuss business with this man. After all, he was a big-time Colombian drug cartel leader, and one of LaRue's own trusted employees had set up the deal. So LaRue and Pepe outlined prices, drop-off points, and everyday operations. LaRue was talking openly about using violence to ensure his employees don't rat on him. He's quoted as saying, "You get caught doing anything, remember, you'll keep your mouth shut." We know he said this because the entire meeting was recorded on a hidden camera set up by the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, better known as the DEA. Pepe was, in fact, a paid informant and the reliable, longtime employee who'd set up the meeting for LaRue. He'd been working with the DEA for months. The sting operation went as smoothly as you'd hope, even with LaRue initially resisting arrest. Before he knew it, he was on a plane to New York, thanks to the Liberian government, which happily extradited him to assist the DEA. Halfway through the trip, LaRue had already portrayed his own ideas about how his employees should behave, and he was doing his best to come to an agreement with the U.S. government. The authorities gladly allowed LaRue to tell them everything he knew, and one of the most fascinating and elaborate sting operations in U.S. history began almost immediately. It's a rare example of cooperating down, where the head of a criminal organization acts as an informant to help police catch his own employees instead of the other way around. But that's not the only thing that made this operation unique. He was held in custody secretly for 8 years while he pretended he was still managing his criminal enterprise. This meant that he was still ordering his employees and mercenaries to carry out operations, which helped the authorities plan their stings and slowly catch them one by one. As part of his cooperation, he confessed to the 7 murders we mentioned earlier, which helped bring down Rambo. He also helped catch 4 more mercenaries and 5 associates who were assisting his purchase of meth in North Korea. In total, 12 of his former employees and collaborators have been brought to justice with LaRue's help. But it hasn't all gone that smoothly. Leads on contacts in Iran who were purchasing weapons off LaRue went cold. 3 of his RX Limited employees were unfortunately acquitted in Minnesota, and another one escaped from a halfway house and has since totally disappeared. Meanwhile, all of cooperation from LaRue affected his jail sentence in a big way. He was sentenced to just 25 years, minus the nearly 8 years he had already spent in prison while assisting the authorities before being convicted. That's a shorter sentence than some of his employees received. The courts decided they had no choice but to reward his cooperation, or other criminals would refuse to help them in the future, and the criminal justice system would suffer. You'll have to decide for yourself whether LaRue's sentence was enough punishment for the extensive criminal activity he was orchestrating. Do you think LaRue deserved life in prison? Tell us your opinion in the comments. When he gets out, though, some people expect he'll immediately be deported to the Philippines. They still have pending charges against him about an arms shipment that LaRue was trying to execute when the government intercepted him. They also might want him to face charges for all the murders he ordered in their country. However, some fear that he could easily buy his way out of prison in that country, which sadly suffers from corruption. LaRue has made plans, though. In a letter he wrote to the court requesting a shorter prison sentence, he said he wanted to start a business selling and hosting Bitcoin miners using a custom chip design that allows him to generate Bitcoin much faster than any other design that's currently available. So, if you wanted to believe that he really was the creator of Bitcoin, maybe that's the evidence you needed. If I were him, I would be too busy worrying about all the criminals he testified against in court. But whatever happens, I think we can agree on one thing. With all the other ways you can make millions, crime sure doesn't pay in the end.